Year, for obvious reasons, we've decided not to hold a golf and tennis outing. Before I turn this event over to the radio voice of the New York Mets, Howie Rose, who will do the interview with Art Shamsky and Ron Bloomberg of the New York Mets and the New York Yankees, I would like to mention the books written by our players tonight. Ron Bloomberg has written a book called Designated Hebrew, available by Sports Publishing. Art Shamsky has written The Magnificent Seasons, which is available on St. Martin's Press, and he's also written After the Miracle, available on Simon & Schuster. Also, I would like to thank all of our sponsors and my fellow co-chairs, Joe Fingerman, Larry Ingber, and Michael Kessler, for making tonight's event a success. If you have any questions that you want to submit to the guest tonight, go to the chat room and address them to Michael Feynman, who will be feeding the questions to our moderator, Howie Rose. But tonight is all about talking baseball. And who better to lead this discussion than the great voice of the New York Mets, Howie Rose. Howie, it's all yours.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate it and welcome everyone. This is the new world that we live in terms of having events like this, but I think we've all gotten pretty good at it. So there's pretty significant comfort level that I've got doing these things. So I think we'd all probably fit into that same category now as being in our element, but there's nothing that really makes me feel more in my element than talking baseball, especially with some really good people. And we're going to get into their backgrounds, of course, but I know that a moment ago, the term interview was used for what this is going to be. This is no interview. This is just a discussion that we're going to have, because hearing baseball people talk, even if you've been in the game as long as I have as a broadcaster, it's always a great kick. So let me introduce, at least the way I'm seeing it right now, in the middle top of my screen, the former New York Yankee. He was a first-round draft pick of the Yankees and eventually not only became a real good first baseman, but also the Yankees' first designated hitter when the rule changed in 1973, Ron Bloomberg. And the way I'm seeing the screen right now, right underneath the applauding Mark Engel, is a member of the 1969 world champion New York Mets, and still very, very active in the Mets alumni. And, you know, it's great to see both Ron and Art Shamsky so involved in New York right now. So, gentlemen, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. And I know that you two have kind of had a traveling road show anyway, between your work with the Jewish National Fund and other charities. So, but one at a time, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with JNF.
You want me to go first, Ronnie?
Yeah, because you got me into it. You got me involved in it.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to tell you, Howie, I love that beard look. It's great.
That's my COVID beard.
I do like it. Also, I want to just say one thing. If Ron Bloomberg runs up and puts on his Yankee uniform, our jersey, I've got my Met jersey right back here. So, so keep an eye on him. If he's got his Yankee jersey on at any time, let me know, and I'm going to throw this on, okay?
Equal. Even this election season, I think there's still some sort of equal time doctrine.
Yeah. First of all, let me just say it's great to be here and joining all of you. And Howie, of course, you're the best, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this kind of session with us and talking sports. JNF was really the first time I got involved with JNF was in 2007 when Ronnie and I both managed in the Israel Baseball League, and I became aware that league would not get involved or not even get off the ground unless JNF did what they did, and which was to help raise some money to fix whatever fields were over there and to do whatever they could to get the league going. And since that point, I've maintained a relationship with them and tried to do what I could to help them and in all their causes. They raise so much money for wonderful, wonderful causes over in Israel. And at the bottom of the list, but it was important to me, is a part of their fundraising is Project Baseball, which raises money to help develop the game of baseball in Israel, and it's worked really good because even though the Israel Baseball League only lasted 1 year in 2007, I do believe it was the catalyst and the prelude to Israel getting more involved with the game of baseball, and consequently they have had success in the World Baseball Classic, and of course would have gone to the Olympics this year if there would have been an Olympics. So for me, doing these things for JNF is really a labor of love, so to speak. And I'm always willing to help them do things to help raise money in all their causes, but in particular, Project Baseball.
Howie, I met them basically through art and over basically in Israel. And to be honest with you, I really did not know too much about them. I guess I was on the other side of the track with the Yankees, other than the Mets, because most of the people that I actually met with the JNF are mostly Met fans. So I became an outsider. But when I met Russell Robinson over in Israel, he really, really impressed me what he really wanted to do over in Israel. And being a proud Jew, Art and I became very, very good friends. I knew Art when I was playing with the Yankees and when Art was with the Mets. And we became extremely good friends when we were over in Israel. And the JNF people really took great care of us. I mean, they really did. And we love to give back to charity, being Jewish and being a proud Jew, anything. And we told Russell and the group downtown that anything that they wanted for us to do, we're here for them. The major thing, we're very, very lucky throughout our life that we played a baseball game. We basically, this was a fantasy that came true for me, and I guess for Art also, that we did something what we really wanted to do. And also to be able to play in New York, where all the Jews were. And Arthur is from St. Louis, and I'm from Atlanta. And Atlanta was not the biggest Jewish population when I was growing up. I grew up with probably more KKKs than Jews. So it was, I don't know if you all ever seen the movie Mississippi Burning. Atlanta was exactly like that. And people didn't realize when I was growing up, being a Jew, nobody had any idea what a Jew was. And we probably had about 50 families in the whole city of Atlanta. And half of my teammates, after on a Friday, they went to their cross burnings, and then they had their hoods and they had their robes in their cars. And as soon as the game was actually over with, they went, I don't know if you ever been to Atlanta, you've been to Atlanta, but
Sure.
There's a place called Stone Mountain. And Stone Mountain was a really a big place where they had mostly the cross burnings. And so, I mean, I saw all that stuff, and coming up to New York and being involved with the Jewish community and got involved with JNF, it's been nothing but a great pleasure for me to meet all the associates with the organization. And like I said before, Art and I were a proud Jew, and anything what we can do for the people, we're here for them.
Well, I think you both know that you made a big impact, and certainly in your playing days in particular, made a big impact on young Jewish baseball fans. And Art, I'll just give you an example based on your career. Going back to that magical year of 1969, I was 15. And, I'd been bar mitzvahed, and I knew it was a big deal, but it didn't really hit me. I know everybody talks about Sandy Koufax not pitching in the first game of the 1965 World Series, but where it really hit home for me was that, the Mets had overtaken the Cubs for first place in 1969 on the 10th of September. And just 2 days later, they were in Pittsburgh to play a doubleheader with the Pirates, and it became a pretty well-known doubleheader in Mets history for reasons we'll talk about later. But it also, and I forget, Ron, Art, whether it was Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, but here's this big doubleheader, and you didn't play because you wanted to observe the holiday. How did that go over with manager Gil Hodges, with general manager Johnny Murphy? Did you have any trepidation about approaching them and saying, look, this is what I believe in, it's important for me, I'm not going to play tonight?
That was a tough decision for me. It's funny how some things in your life you just can't understand and figure out. At that particular time, I just thought it was important for me to take off for the holiday. And you're right. We were fighting for to in a situation that the Mets had never been in. Of course, all the other years they finished in last place or ninth, and the year before in 1968 we finished ninth, a half game out of last place. But this was a different situation, and I was toying with the idea. I didn't really know what to do, quite honestly. And I went up to Gil Hodges and I said, and I didn't really talk much to Gil. He's a very tough, stern disciplinarian, and quite honestly, I avoid him as much as possible. But I whenever I needed to say anything to him, he was always fair and honest with me. And I went up to him and I said, Gil, I'm really in trying to understand what I should do with this situation. And to make a long story short, he said, do what you think is best, and I'll support you. And I thought that was terrific. And he was like that. He was an honest, look you in the eye person, and he would just tell you what he thought. But I thought it was terrific that he just said, go ahead and do what you think is best. Well, my problem was we were in Pittsburgh, and I don't remember if it was a makeup game for the doubleheader or it was a scheduled doubleheader, but we were playing a tough Pittsburgh Pirate team, and so I took off for the holiday, and I just said, I said to myself, gosh, I just hope we don't lose a doubleheader, because I can just see myself getting a lot of hate mail. I can deal with a split, but please, let's not lose a doubleheader. Well, to make a long story short, as you know, Howie, as you mentioned, it's one of those periods in Met history that's just unbelievable. Both games were won 1-0, and both starting pitchers, I think it was Jerry Koosman and Don Cardwell, drove in the winning runs in each game, and it was just historical in the fact that we won both games 1-0. Well, that was fine, and I was so happy about it. The next day, I went to the clubhouse, so I believe we're still in Pittsburgh, and I thought everybody would be happy to be seeing me. Nobody said anything, and I was really in shock, because I was really happy we had won the doubleheader. But I walked into the clubhouse and just kind of looked at everybody, and they just kind of passed me by, and I went over to my little cubbyhole a locker in the clubhouse, and there was a sign in there that said, we won a doubleheader, why don't you stay out the rest of the year, which I thought was really kind of funny. And to this day, I'm not sure who wrote it, but I have a good idea. And it was just one of those periods in your life that you do things, and sometimes you don't understand why you do them. It just was one of those things, and it turned out holidays in other years turned either an off day or where after the season was over. But the reality of it was it turned out all the best for me on a personal level, but certainly for the New York Mets.
Well, I'll tell you how inspirational it was for me as a 15-year-old to see you take off on what I think was Rosh Hashanah. I think Yom Kippur was a little later in September that year, but it doesn't matter. You took off, and it so inspired me that I made sure to take off of school on every other Jewish holiday in the calendar.
Well,
we got a lot of holidays. We got a math test. Oh, sorry, Simchas Torah, can't do it.
So I got blamed for that. That's great. So that's terrific.
When you say just to clear this up, when you saw that note, did you think that it was just playful clubhouse humor, or did you think there was anything under kind of an undercurrent of anti-Semitism to that?
No, I thought it was playful humor. We had some guys that were, between Don Clendenin and Jerry Koosman and Tug McGraw, we had some real characters on the team. It wouldn't surprise me that they would do anything like that. So I never thought of it anything more than just the guys having fun with the whole thing. But again, I was so happy that we won the doubleheader, and historically we still talk about those particular games, because it was a year that had so many strange and positive and wonderful things happen, but those particular games were such vivid memories in my mind because of what the circumstances were. But I had no doubts in my mind it was somebody just playing a joke.
Good. Well, Ronnie, let me turn this back to the Yankees for a minute. And again, just from personal experience, 1961 was the year that my dad really introduced me to baseball. That was the Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris home run chase. And that was a pretty good year as a 7-year-old to become a baseball fan. And so we were at Yankee Stadium one day that year. Remember, the Mets weren't even in existence yet. And I said to my dad, boy, when I grow up, I want to play for the Yankees. And what possessed him to say this to me, and he's been gone a long, long time now, I never found out. but he actually said, well, that's not going to happen. You can't play for the Yankees because you're Jewish. And, you know, to say that to a 7-year-old, that kind of knocked me out. I had no idea why. And, you know, he kind of worked over it. He didn't really want to get into any depth about it. But as a young player from the South joining the Yankees, who had not had, I mean, they didn't even have their first black player until about 8 years after Jackie Robinson broke in. Did you feel uncomfortable or even any anti-Semitic stuff coming out of the Yankee organization towards you?
Not at all, because I really did not know till I got up to New York that whenever I started doing engagements and started meeting people and going to all these men's groups, the Jewish people in the men's group will say to me, "Did you know that the Yankees are anti-Semitic?" I knew they were owned by CBS when I signed with the Yankees in '67. Came up in I came up in '70, and I knew I was the first Jew. And Elston Howard, I think, was the first black guy. Okay, and when I first came up, it was incredible because I mean, playing in the Bronx, and you go, you know, I mean, right in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, you're right on the Grand Concourse, and that's where we actually stayed. That's where they put up the rookies, you know, to stay
At
up
the Concourse Plaza?
Grand Concourse Plaza, yeah. And we used to actually walk from the Grand Concourse to Yankee Stadium. And when we used to go and basically walked by the park, you see all the Jewish grandmothers reading all the Jewish, the papers is in Jewish. And I said, golly, Pete, you know, I mean, when I got bar mitzvah, you barely got bar mitzvah in Hebrew. You got mostly in English because.
Oh, you too. You read it phonetically too.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you know, I mean, it was a lot different growing up down south than what it is up in New York, up in the north. Okay, so I mean, I get to Yankee Stadium. As soon as I got on the field, when I first signed with the Yankees in '67, I was 17 years old. Okay, and they brought me up to New York, and the Yankees brought me up, and my first interview was with Walter Cronkite up on in the press box with Frank Messer, Phil Rizzuto, and Bill White. Okay, and Scooter, and I mean, it was great, but it was like 3,000 people at the game. It was nobody at the game. And I said, golly, Pete, Mickey Mantle's going out now. I mean, this is the Bronx. This is Yankees.
Yeah, but you realize there were only 3,000 people there because the rest of them were all at Shea Stadium.
Yeah. Oh, I know that. I know that. They're listening to the Jets going over the field. I played at Shea. You knew I played at Shea 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So I knew that. So I get to the minor leagues and I come up to the big leagues when I was 19 years old. And as soon as I got on the field, it was a big thing because when I came up, it was myself to come up and then Ron Swoboda came up at the same time. Okay. And as soon as I got on the field, there was so many Jews wearing yarmulkes. They're right field, they're left field. They got signs. They say, welcome, Yiddish boy. And I mean, it was great. As soon as I walked on the field, it was a big cheer. So they embraced me. It was a wonderful, wonderful feeling. You know, I mean, even if they booed me, you know, I still would have said, you know, I mean, it's wonderful to be in Yankee Stadium. I don't care what anybody says. You know, once you put on the pinstripes, once you go to the old Yankee Stadium, first thing you do, you go to the monuments. When you go to the monuments, you look all around and you see where Babe Ruth played, Lou Gehrig played, Yogi Berra played, you know, all those guys. You know, I mean, it was incredible. And then, you know, it's just the smell of Yankee Stadium. You got the subway in Rice Field. You got the facade at Yankee Stadium. You got all the, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, I'm a 19-year-old kid playing my first game, you know, it was a game of the week. And I'm scared to death. You know, I'm nervous like this. And, you know, so I get up to bat, my first time up. And as soon as I got up, it was a standing O for me. All the Jews stood up. And I mean, it was the greatest feeling in the whole wide world. I mean, it was, you know, I have always been a proud Jew. You know, the only thing I did was to miss all my bar mitzvahs lessons so I could play baseball and football and basketball. I'm not going to lie to you. I missed all my
Get
lessons.
off.
Yeah, I knew my hop tour, but it was in English. So that was easy. You know, but I said some things in Hebrew, but I made some, you know, I mean, it was wonderful to come up to New York and being part of the culture and, you know, and I know Art, you know, playing in Long Island where it's like 75% Jews up there. He already had a automatic Jewish, you know, fan base up there. So, I mean, the Bronx was a lot different because the Bronx was changing. The Jewish mothers or, you know, grandmothers were leaving the Concourse Plaza and it was changing. But I had a lot of Jewish fans and even to this day, it's been wonderful. I'm so proud to be a New York Yankee, proud to play in New York where the greatest fans, if they're Met fans or Yankee fans, you know, I mean, they're Yankee fans and they're baseball fans. And Art will tell you the same thing.
Well, so Ronnie, you had a built-in advantage, of course, of starting your major league career in New York as a Jew with a big welcoming committee. For Art, it was a little bit different, right? You're from St. Louis, you break into the big leagues with the Cincinnati Reds, and Cincinnati, you know, has an old German heritage to it, and not known for, you know, a lot of Finkelsteins and Rabinowitzes in Cincinnati, I wouldn't think. So what was it uncomfortable for you at all breaking in the major leagues in that town?
You know, not really. It was I grew up in St. Louis, and in Cincinnati was kind of a smaller version of a city like St. Louis. So I really never had any problems. No, it was just it was, you know, I was so into playing baseball, and it was really those years were for me, you know, playing with some great players who went on to have these fabulous careers. And it was the prelude, I believe, to the Big Red Machine with those great teams in the 70s. You know, I came up with Rose, Bench, Perez, Lee May, Tommy Harper, guys that went on to have great careers. And of course, just, you know, like I said, a few years later, the Big Red Machine was just this fabulous team in the 70s. But I really didn't have any problems in Cincinnati. You know, it's interesting how when I got traded to the Mets, first time you get traded, it's always a little bit of a culture shock. You leave guys that you started with, friends that you made when you're basically 18 years old. And so when I first heard about the trade, I was a little bit in shock. And then when I heard it was to the Mets, it was doubly shock for me because I didn't really like New York. I wasn't crazy about the city. It was just so big and so encompassing for me. And then I heard that I was going to the Mets, and that made me a little bit depressed because the Mets were really the lovable losers. And having, if you didn't beat the Mets 2 out of 3 in a series, it was a bad series. But you know, I look back on my life and my career, I had the best of both worlds. I came up with some great players at Cincinnati, and then came over to the Mets, and winning the World Series obviously changed my life. And so for me, it was just a wonderful experience to have both those kind of things in my career. But I really have to say that Cincinnati was just a little bit smaller version of St. Louis, and wonderful years there, and played with and against some of the greatest players in the history of the game. But really, my career is defined by being with the Mets. I played, 13 years, and people just talk about that 1 year. The other 12, forget about it. They're not even important. So I understand that. So for me, I look back, it was just wonderful to come up with the Reds and have that experience. But playing for the Mets in those years was just unbelievable. And as you know, because you're out there all the time, or you broadcast the games, and you know that historically that team is so important to everybody who was around, and a lot of people weren't even born yet. They know about that team from their parents or their grandparents. So for me, it was the best of both worlds.
By the way, if you weren't, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
No. When we actually came up, we're making no money. Okay, it wasn't a lot of money involved when we played. Okay, But basically what we did was most of the guys on our team, and I know that on the Mets, they had to have second jobs. They had to have second jobs. And I know Art stayed up in New York, and Art did a lot of stuff. And I stayed up here also. And, you know, people always ask me, what did I do? My second job was I lit everybody's candles for everybody's bar mitzvah and wedding. And basically, that's what I did. That's what I did. I was an uncle, and I was a cousin, and I was a brother to every Jew in the city. So, I mean, it was great. I mean, and people always, there was a lot of guys that were selling cars and working at Barney's and Gimbals and places like that. And I was every weekend, if they were not really ultra religious, on Saturday, I would go to a bar mitzvah or a wedding a Saturday night. So I might do 4 or 5 engagements, and I was already got into everybody's. I became someone's relative as soon as I got to the organization, and it was fun. I mean, we had such a great time. I mean, we really did. And, you know, being part of it, and I could go back, and Art could go back and tell you some crazy stories, and we could tell you crazy stories too. But I mean, hey, New York is the best.
We love crazy stories. Feel free.
New York is the best of the best. You don't want to hear a lot of the stories. You know, I mean, you know, these are locker rooms.
Don't kid yourself.
These are locker room. I know that. And have you seen it? You've been there, and you whatever. Yeah. And but it was wonderful. I mean, Art and I, you know, we talk about it all the time, and you know, I talk to Art what 4 or 5 times a week, Arthur.
More 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6 times a week. And the first thing I say, Arthur, do you believe what we're going through? I said, this is, and I told you, Howie, this is a perfect storm. I said, if I told you this in January, would you believe somebody, this could actually happen like this?
Nope. Twilight Zone.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, you know, we had Yankee fantasy camp. That's been all gone. And who knows if baseball is going to start next year. But it's still, we still got the Yankee fans. And just to be part of this Zoom and to meet all these guys, I mean, it's great. I mean, I love it. I mean, you know, these are our fans. Hey, I've been booed in front of 50,000 people. 1 or 2 more doesn't make a bit of difference to me. So you tell people the way it is.
Well, you were running around being everybody's uncle and cousin at these bar mitzvahs. You know, Art wasn't exactly holed up in his room either, I don't think.
Oh, no. Art was my hero.
Well, didn't you have a place on the east side with Lynn's or Boswell?
Yeah, Phil Linds and I owned 3 places at one time. Yeah, I was.
At one time?
At one time, yeah. We had a place in Queens, a place in Rockland County, and of course the one on First Avenue, Mr. Laughs. You know, you had to work. You had to, you know, this is post-baseball career. I was one of those guys that when I got hurt so much that I was out of the game at 30. And so I wasn't prepared. You know, you win the World Series in your mid-20s and you think it's going to last forever. And it just doesn't. And so unfortunately I got hurt and was out of the game. And I probably, one of the things I regret is that I probably should have just taken some time off and come back and played some more and got some more years in the pension and you know, but I didn't do it for whatever reason, but I got involved with Phil Linds and I were partners and stuff. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful to be involved with him as a great friend and a great teammate. And you do what you had to do to survive. But all the things that happened to me in my life, post baseball career were simply because of being part of that 1969 team. I understand that. I deal with it every single day. In fact, when I say I deal with it, I love it every single day because I talk about it, but I understand how it's all come about. And I'm so thankful that I was part of that team and very lucky to be part of that wonderful group of guys. And we've lost 10 guys from that team, but all the things that, whether it's been broadcasting or business or whatever it might be, it's all been because of being part of that wonderful 69 team.
And that's the hardest part, I think, as you know, the heroes of a generation get older, you do lose people. And obviously we lost Tom Seaver recently, and the Yankees, Ronnie, lost Whitey Ford recently. And it certainly is a bit of a window into our own mortalities as we're getting older too and getting into that generation. But it's another piece of your childhood that ceases to exist, at least for me. Does it for you when you've got teammates and friends who were teammates who passed? Does it feel like another part of your youth has just left you?
Yeah, I think so. I think when they tore down Shea, part of my youth was taken from me. But it's absolutely true when you see guys that you played with and even guys you played against that you had some sort of relationship, whether it's just saying hello or you ran into them post baseball career. It's interesting that we've had so many losses in the last few months, guys that we played against and guys that were so important in our lives. And so I agree with you 100%, Howie, that it just kicks you in the gut, and you absolutely true. You feel your mortality. Guys die who are dying who are younger than you. Or younger than me in this case. And so for me, it's always tough to hear about it. You'd almost get afraid to pick up the phone every time the phone rings, because it's almost sometimes, especially this year, it's been almost bad news every time, except when Ronnie calls me. That's a different story. When he calls me, it's always good news.
You mean those 5 or 6 days a week? Is that
always? It's always good news.
Yeah, we talk about restaurants where we're going to go to once we go back up to New York.
Well, what, Ronnie? I know you and Thurman became pretty friendly. Thurman Munson.
Roomie for 4 years. Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, you were away from the Yankees by that time when Thurman passed. Do you remember that shock? And do you remember?
Absolutely. I mean, I have a book that's going to be. It's going to actually be out in April of next year, and it's going to be called "The Captain and Me on and Off the Field." It's already been being published now by Triumph, and it's coming out in April. He was my roommate for 4 years. And, you look at the captain, and he was actually the captain of that team. And you look at somebody who was very instrumental to my career and to the Yankee career. And it kills you to go to Old Timers Day games. And we would always go to Old Timers Day games. After you run out on the field, you do the national anthem, and they'll tell you who has passed that year. And then, we didn't know half of them already passed away, to be honest with you. And, that's a good feeling. Let me tell you something. Baseball is a fraternity. People don't realize there's not too many baseball players that ever played Major League Baseball. It's small. And when somebody passes, I mean, that's a big part of your life, even if you have just met. I remember when I met Hank Greenberg at Old Timers Day, and then he passed away a few years later. And even though I met him just once, I mean, it killed me, because number one, being Jewish, and we talked about it, and also that I met him. He was an idol of mine. And I mean, it really hurts. It's part of life. I understand that, because when we leave or whatever, I just hope somebody will say, this guy was a good ball player, but he was a good person. That's all I want. That's what I want to be known for. But like Art said, when somebody passes away, it's gut wrenching. I mean, it's very, very hard to take. And I know that we have a real good friend, Phil Lenz. Phil is in a nursing home in Virginia, North Carolina, Art?
Yeah, he's in Virginia. Yeah.
He's in Virginia, and he's not doing real well. And I mean, we talk about him all the time, and he really doesn't know who is he talking about. I mean, Fritz Peterson, and here's another guy. Fritz Peterson is sick in Minnesota. And I mean, he's the biggest prankster in the whole world. He's like Tug. He's like McGraw. And so, I mean, you talk to these people and they don't even know who you are. And real quick, 2 years ago, I was at Old Timers Day game, and next to me was Jim Bouton, who has Alzheimer's. And there was Jay Johnstone, who was just getting Alzheimer's. He just passed away a little while ago. And they're right next to me. And I mean, and the craziest thing and the thing that really killed me was after the game, we're getting undressed, and Jay Johnstone went to take a shower with his clothes on. And, you know, and I'm, you're watching this and, you know, I mean, and it really, I mean, how in the world can these guys be sick? And they're such a great athlete.
It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
You know what, though? And there's a great segue into an experience that Art had just a few days ago. And Art, you put this out on Twitter that, and let me just back up 1 second, because as Ronnie's got his book coming out about Thurman Munson, Art's book, After the Miracle, which looks back on the 1969 Mets and where a lot of them are now. You know, you went out to Calistoga, you paid Tom Seaver a visit a few years ago at the Vineyard. Buddy Harrelson was on that trip, and we know that Buddy has been dealing with Alzheimer's. And Art, you went out to Hop Hog and spent a little time with Buddy the other day, and you put up a video of you and he having a catch, which was just, it was so wonderful to see. What was the experience like, knowing how Buddy's been struggling, and did he recognize you? Did his eyes light up when he saw you? What was the whole day like?
You know, it's funny. I hadn't seen Buddy Howie for over a year at the reunion, in which you did. You were the broadcaster on the field that day, who did a great job. And I just want to thankful that we didn't have the reunion this year, because it would have been canceled. But it was a wonderful experience, and I hadn't seen him since that time, and I've been meaning to you know, connect with him, and I just decided to take a chance and see if it might be a good time to go out there. And I talked to his ex-wife, Kim, who's really kind of watching out for him, which is unbelievable in itself. And so she said, yeah, come on out on Saturday. And I went out, and I went with Eric Sherman, who co-wrote the book with me, and I met him out there. And I came from the city, and I wasn't really sure how he would react. And when I saw him, you could see the deterioration from even last year. You know, I rode out in the cart with him when you introduced him, and I kind of held on to him because I didn't want him to fall off the cart. So he was already in a period of time where he was deteriorating, and I just didn't know how he would react to me. And I'm not really sure, even when I got there, that he knew who I was, but we had a little conversation, and it was heartwarming to see him. But all of a sudden he grabbed a glove, and I happened to bring out some stuff because Kim said he might want to play catch with you. And I brought my glove with me. And all of a sudden we were out on the front lawn, soft tossing the ball about 30 feet away. And what's really interesting about that is that he's lost, obviously, mental capacity, but he didn't lose anything about how to throw a baseball and how to catch a baseball. And it was just one of these heartwarming things that happened, and didn't know, I had no idea what to expect, except when we started playing catch, it was just a wonderful experience. And he actually gave me one of these things, which I'm wearing now. It's called Team Buddy. It's a little wrist thing here. Let me show you. And it's about, it just says alz.org, and it's just something to make you aware of Alzheimer's, which is such a dreaded disease. I mean, there's so many bad diseases out there, but this is just awful to see somebody deteriorate. And so, to make a long story short, we played catch, and we went out to get some lunch, and it was a tough situation. And when I left to come back to New York, it was bittersweet, because I had the same feeling that I had when we went out to see Seaver when we interviewed him for the book, because I didn't want to do an interview with him over the phone. And we went out there to interview Tom, and we took Buddy with us at that time. This was 2017, and Jerry Kuzman and Ron Swoboda. And when we left Tom, it was bittersweet in a sense, because we spent 8 or 9 hours just reminiscing and talking about Team, which was really a big part of the book. What the book wasn't about Tom in itself, but it was about the friendship and the camaraderie we had as teammates. 50 years later, still have that strong bond. But when I left there, it was bittersweet in the sense that I didn't know if I would see him again. I had that same feeling on Saturday when I saw Buddy, and hopefully that won't be the case. But it was just a wonderful experience. And what's interesting about the whole thing is that when I tweeted it out, I must have gotten, I don't know, hundreds of responses from people saying thank you, and it was great to see Buddy, and just for people to know that he's still around and still viable in some ways, to me, it was very special. And so it was a wonderful afternoon for me because I got a chance to say hello to him. But it just goes back to what you said before. We keep losing our friends and we keep losing our teammates. And it's like, life goes on, but the reality of it is, it's just as we get older, we're so vulnerable, our own mortality, but so vulnerable to lose all these people that were important to our lives. And it's sad, but I was so invigorated in a sense because I got a chance to see him and know that he's still around and he's still playing catch. He's still throwing the ball around. And that was wonderful for me.
Well, that was great. Now, Ronnie, you've had experiences too. You just talked about, Jay Johnstone and Fritz Peterson. But when you look back on your career, you've got the book coming out about Thurman, but one or two of your other former Yankee teammates that still have a special place in your heart to this day, whether you're in touch with them or not?
Oh yeah, Arthur would tell you about this. My closest friend on the Yankees right now got to be. It's very, very simple. It has to be Mickey Rivers. And
Gozzlehead.
Yeah, you know probably Mickey, but Arthur would tell you he's the funniest guy you have ever seen before in your whole life. When we used to go down to Yankee fantasy camp and we had Mickey Rivers and we had Oscar Gamble, you're talking about Laurel and Hardy. They're the funniest two people you have ever seen before in your whole life. You wouldn't believe, I could tell you things. I could tell you where they got mug shots and, they came to the ballpark and all of a sudden, somebody picks up the paper and it's a big shot of Oscar Gamble and Mickey Rivers and mug shots. Those two guys are the funniest people in the whole world. Arthur would tell you, Arthur's up in New York a lot. Of course, he lives up there. But before they had the problem, I think you see Mickey an awful lot, right? Right, Arthur?
Yeah, Mickey is a classic. I would have loved to been a teammate of Mickey's because he is one of the funniest guys you'll ever want to meet. I'm not sure I understand him all the time when he's talking, but he's still one of these guys that when you talk to him or see him and you get invigorated because he's just kind of like one of these character people that you meet in your life.
He's a wonderful. Let me tell you something. He's a best of the best, and we had some great guys on our team. We really did. That's why they called us the Bronx Zoo. We had crazy guys on the team. And people ask, what kind of guys were they? We had fights every single day. We had Mickey and Reggie used to fight, and Gossage and Cliff Johnson used to fight. And if we didn't have a fight, something's happening. We had to get off our steam in the clubhouse. Once we left the clubhouse, we got on the field, we won. We're crazy. We had guys who think, yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about Rivers and mugshots and stuff. There were stories going around, and I don't know if it was George who had to do it himself or somebody else had to literally go into a building around the Grand Concourse on the night of a game and pull Mickey out of a card game to get him to the ballpark.
It wasn't a card game. He wasn't feeling well. And he comes to the ballpark, right? Who got him was Ron Guidry. George got him a car, picked up, he lived on Washington Heights. That's where Mickey.
In Washington Heights over by the GW Bridge. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Right there. Okay. They picked him up. He was in bed, he was eating and he didn't feel like, he had whatever. Okay. Picked him up. George told him that if you come to the ballpark, I have a surprise for you. Okay. And Mickey would do anything for money. Okay. Mickey would do anything for money. So they gave him $1,000 in a check. When they gave him the $1,000, first thing he looked at he said, a check. He said, a black guy doesn't take checks. I want cash. But I don't want 1,000. I want $5,000. So what he did was, and Arthur knows this, what he did was he got dressed, didn't warm up. First time he got up, he got a base hit. He had $5,000 of cash in his back pocket. Okay. Willie Randolph got a base hit. Okay. Got him to second base. I'm sorry. No. Willie got out and Thurman was up. Thurman got a base hit. Mickey's running to second base. Okay. Was going to go to third, but he had his money in his back pocket. Okay. When he's rounding second, his money fell out at second base. Thurman was running around to second base. He came back and picked up his money. And Thurman said, and then Mickey yells, "Fat boy, go back to first base. I got to pick up my money," like that. It was the funniest thing. It was the funniest thing you have ever seen before in your whole life. Everybody on the bench. I mean, we're going nuts. Billy was going, what is he doing? He's picking up his money. His all $100 bills falling out of his pocket. Right? Hey, you knew about that, right, Arthur?
Yeah, I heard about it. I wasn't there, so I heard about it, but just funny stuff. Absolutely funny stuff.
No. It was demolition derbies. The guys on our team, and I know that when you had Tug McGraw and you have Koosman and you have like Arthur, you have some really some outgoing people. The guys that on our team, you had no idea what they were going to do. You had from Sparky to Goose to Cliff Johnson to Reggie to Nettles to Shambliss to Thurman to Catfish and Kenny Holzman. You had no idea what these guys are going to do. But you know what? We won. But we had to have a fight every time we're in the clubhouse. Somebody got in a fight, in an argument, and somebody would come out with maybe a bloody nose or black eye or whatever. But you go out on the field, hey, we won. We had a great time.
I know Tug's the guy that gets all the credit for being the prankster around the team you played with, as far as the Mets are concerned, Art. You didn't have a Mickey Rivers, but did you have anybody apart from Tug who could really pull a good prank?
Well, Koosman would be right up there. Jerry was very serious when he pitched, but those days that he wasn't pitching, he was doing all sorts of crazy things. And he was, we didn't have as wild a clubhouse as Ronnie did back in those years with the Yankees, but we had, every clubhouse has got a cast of characters, but we had some guys that would really do some wonderful and odd things. But, we had, Tug, as you mentioned, was really the one that would do all this bizarre stuff, and Koosman was a guy that would do some of the things too. And we had Clendenin when he came over to the team. Clendenin was the kind of guy that would get on players across the clubhouse. If you made an error in a game, say a night game, he wouldn't say anything. But the next day when you got to the ballpark, he wouldn't let up. He would just get on you about everything that you did. It may be the way you dressed, it may be the way your uniform looked, and he was quite a character. But Tug and Koosman, I think, were the two biggest on our team.
So when you guys would get together for a Mayor's Trophy game, did either of you care who won?
George.
Well, most of us were.
We care less, but George, he never wanted to lose to the Mets. If we lost to the Mets, it would fine us $25 a piece.
Yeah, those were
$25 was a lot of money to us.
Those were interesting games because we all thought we'd have an off day, but we ended up playing. But it was a great cause, and I wish they would do them again. But now with interleague play, they're never going to do it. But it was always fun to see those guys, other than spring training, and so they were fun games. And of course, when you're playing against the Yankees, you always wanted to win, and that was always in the back of our mind. But they were fun games.
Well, Ronnie at least got to, left-handed hitter got to hit at Yankee Stadium, got the benefits of that ballpark. Did you salivate, Art, at the thought, even if it was just once a year in a Mayor's Trophy game, or what you might have done at Yankee Stadium?
I would have liked to play there and had 500 at-bats if I could have. It would have been interesting, but, you deal what the hand you've been dealt. So it is what it is. But I had one at bat in Yankee Stadium. I'll never forget this. I got over to the Oakland A's the last year I played, and I had one at bat and I walked against Lindy McDaniel. I'll never forget that. But I was thinking about when I got into that batter's box, just looking at that stadium and that right field line, I said, oh my gosh. And I know Ronnie didn't hit any cheap home runs. He hit long home runs because he's big and strong, but I would have liked to play in Yankee Stadium for a little bit. But it is what it is. You know, life is puts you in the places you're at. So, but it was wishful thinking.
And Ron, when you transitioned from being a full-time first baseman to the designated hitter, nobody knew if the DH would even last. And, here it is now incorporated into both leagues, probably, on a permanent basis. But how did you take that when all of a sudden now they changed the rule, 1972 winter going into 73, and they tell you, you're not going to play too much in the field. We want you to be a DH. Was it tough to accept, or did you like it?
No, I screwed up the game in 73. I felt great about it. Nobody can ever take it away from me.
Very first one.
Nobody can ever take it away from me. I screwed up the game. I never thought it was going to exist. It was a designated pinch hitter. We joked about it. Everybody in spring training, I always played first base in spring training, but everybody wanted to get a hit. Everybody said, I'm going to be the DH, the designated. They called it a designated pinch hitter down before it became the designated hitter. And everybody got to get a bat, except for me, because I was playing first base. But the only reason I became the first baseman, only reason why everybody said I was, I was a first DH, but I was really not a DH. I pulled a hamstring 4 days before we were supposed to break camp in Fort Lauderdale. And Whitey Ford and Elson Howard came up to me and they said, can you play again up in Boston against Louis Tiant? And I said, of course I can. But if I did not say that I could play, I would go on the disabled list. And I always think about Wally Pipp, Lou Gehrig and Wally Pipp. Now, if I can't play, they're going to bring somebody else in and I'm never going to see Yankee Stadium again. And that goes my career. They taped me up like a mummy, got up to that. I had no idea. To be honest with you, I had no idea what it was. No idea what it was. I remember Sherm Lala. Is that his name, Sherm?
Yeah, it was a catcher back in the day.
No, not Sherm Lala. Sherm Feller, the guy that did the announcing for the Red Sox.
Oh, at Fenway. Yeah.
Yeah, Sherm Feller or whatever. He had a very distinguished voice. And when he did the when he got on the
PA system,
it was wonderful. He said, I'm never going to forget. I got up to bat. Louis was up there. He said, DH for the New York Yankees, Ron Blomberg. I didn't, people said, were you nervous? Nervous. If I got nervous, I shouldn't be in the major leagues. That was no big deal. We lost the ball game. I walked with the bases loaded, became the first. Everybody thought Orlando Cepeda was going to be the first DH because he was on the Red Sox. He batted fourth. I batted sixth. Okay. So I come in the clubhouse. We lose 15-5. Mel Stoudemire pitch. There was probably about 100, 150 reporters around me. And they said, what was it like to be the first DH? And everybody's looking at me. We're losing the ball game 15-5. And I feel like a schmuck, I really feel bad, what are they talking to me about, So now all of a sudden, everybody said, how do you feel about being the DH? I never thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be like the designated runner. Remember the designated runner? It was
Herb Washington, yeah.
Yeah, Herb Washington. It lasted for what, a month? He got picked off and he never stole a base. He was a 9-500. He didn't know how to steal a base. I thought it was going to die just like that. But look at it now. It changed the game of baseball. It became a new era in the game of baseball.
Hey, Howie, can I just jump in for a second?
Sure.
Yeah, get Ronnie to tell you how much food he ate between each at-bat. Going in and off.
But wait a second. I was in the worst clubhouse in the world up in Boston. The only thing we had was kibasi, onions, and peppers. And I went up there because it was like Elson Howard. I sat next to Ellie. I said, Ellie, it's cold out here. How did you do this? He said, you playing in the game. Why don't you go up to the clubhouse? So I go up into the clubhouse. We didn't have TVs back then. We had a radio. We listened to a radio. I'm sitting on a seat like that.
The best way to do it, by the way.
Huh? He
That's right.
He brings the food out. Vince was a clubby. He brought the food out. And I said, hey, I'm getting a little bit hungry. He brought some kibasi out and he brought it like popcorn out. And I'm sitting there. I said, I'm going to eat a hot dog. I'm going to eat a kibasi. So I eat a kibasi, drank a Diet Pepsi, right? Listening to the game. I said, this is really not that bad. I'm warm. I got up to bat. I'm eating and whatever. I got to run down again about 20 minutes later to get an at bat. So I got a base hit, my second at bat, run back into the clubhouse like that, start eating it again. I said, this is really not that bad.
Well, never mind the kielbasa. Did any of your artifacts from that first plate appearance, the first DH ever, wind up in Cooperstown? Did they ask for anything?
Everything. They
What do you
took
mean
my
everything?
body up there
The
too.
kielbasa too?
Yeah, they took my whole body up there. No, they took the ball, they took the bat, they got the jerk, they did the whole gamut. And
Cool.
The worst part about it was Marty Appel, who was a PR guy, Marty.
Right. Sure.
And unfortunately, they took we're allowed to have 12 bats a month. That's all we're allowed. The traveling secretary, that's all we're allowed to have was 12 bats. Now they can have 500 bats a day if they wanted it. They could order whatever they wanted to. He took my best bat. I remember we getting our bats in Boston. I'm going through the bats. Though that bat had some knots on it. I said, golly, Pete, I got like 50, 60 hits on this thing like that. And he took my bat. I said, you're not going to take my bat away from me. This is the only bat I had that had some knots in it. He took my baseball bat. After that,
Cooperstown,
I had like 8 or 9 bats. I had 8 or 9 bats left. I had to borrow someone else's bat during the season. Art would tell you, they don't give us bats. They gave us what? 1 pair of shoes we had. Now, I go in there in old Thomas Day. I took Derek Jeter's locker because he took my locker. He had about 500 pairs of shoes. He looked like Modine, Modell. He looked like Modell and looked like a sporting goods store. I had like a pair of shoes. I had 8 or 9 bats. That's all I had. But it was incredible what he had.
All right, but you got something in Cooperstown. Now, Art, when you were with the Reds, you hit home runs in 4 consecutive at-bats, which doesn't happen very often. Any of that stuff find its way to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, the bat is on display there. They rotated a lot, so it's in a section called Special Feats. What's interesting about 3 of those home runs, I didn't start the game in one of the games where I hit the 3, and 2 were in extra innings. And we lost that game in Crosley Field, and then I hit a 4th in a row the next game, and we lost that game also. But they took the bat, and which is really kind of nice for me when people let me know that they saw it, and it's kind of a nice thing to have. That's the only way I'm going to get to the Hall of Fame. So it is what it is.
That's a great way to end this, because you both are Hall of Fame people, and obviously what you've done to support the Jewish National Fund is wonderful. But we can back it up by saying that you both got a piece of yourselves in Cooperstown at the Hall of Fame. So Ron Bloomberg and Art Shamsky, thanks so much for joining us. This is great.
Howie, great job as usual.
Thank you, my friend.
I appreciate this. This is wonderful, Howie. I haven't seen you in a long time. The people with JNF, I really appreciate this. I just want to say Deborah Schwartz did a great job. All those people, Sarah, all these people that got us here, we really appreciate this, and anything we can do for the organization, we're here for you. We're proud you, like I said before, and thank y'all people for being a baseball fan. If you're a Yankee or a Met fan, thank you very much to be part of this, and it's great to be able to talk to you after so many years out of baseball.
It was great. I enjoyed it. Thank you both. Thank you, everybody. But don't go away yet, because I do want to turn it over for the final few minutes to the president of the Tri-State region of Jewish National Fund, Michael Kessler. Michael?
Thanks, guys. I think that Ronnie's really lucky that he's not a designated hitter today, because with the food at the Legends at Yankee Stadium, he'd probably balloon up really quick.
True.
And you asked where Russell was, but we're really privileged to have Jeff Levine. Say hi, wave, Jeff. Jeff is the national chairman of the Jewish National Fund. So that means he's the highest unpaid person at the Jewish National Fund. So we're privileged to have Jeff on. Just want to say thank you to Howie, to Ron, and to Art. You guys were really terrific. I want to say thank you to all our sponsors because I really appreciate your generosity. I want to say thank you to our co-chairs, my co-chairs, Mark Engel, Larry Ingber, and Joe Fingerman. Each of you are a Hall of Famer in my book. We're really lucky that JNF was really able to pivot really quickly during this time during COVID. We went from live events to virtual events of every magnitude. Now I know playing golf is a lot different than hearing baseball from you guys, two former baseball players, but I'll tell you, it's a lot less aggravation for most of us. Events like this have able to keep the effect that JNF has on the people that listen, and that means that we could still continue the great work we do in Israel, whether it be trees, whether it be Zionist education, whether it be water resources, community development, preserving heritage sites, or anything that we do, we are still able to do it effectively and efficiently. And lastly, I just want to wish everyone continued good health, stay safe, and remember our 13th annual Golf and Tennis Classic honoring Amy and Josh Goldman will be taking place next August. So I hope all of you could attend that as well. Our website has so many different events like this one that are both taped and live in the future. Just go on it and see it. Maybe you'll learn something, and I promise you won't regret it. So with that, I'm going to say good night. And I really appreciate you guys coming.
Michael, can I just say one thing? I just wanted to say a special hello to a favorite person of Art and myself, Cabot Marks. I see Cabot. He's one of our favorite guys. And we love you, big guy. Thanks for everything what you do. We love you. We can't wait till we see you again. I know Art does. I can't wait till I see you again, big guy.
All right.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great night. Thank you.
Great night.
Thanks, Howie. Thanks, Michael.
My
Thanks.
pleasure.
Thanks,
Bye-bye, y'all.
everybody.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Take care.